Welcome back to another episode of the Morning Buzz. Hi, I'm your host, Russell Gahagan from Russell's Fishing Tech, and today I got a longtime friend along. He's along for the ride on a Morning Buzz episode here sponsored by Torquay Coffee, and that longtime friend is Jason Pranger. Jason, how you doing today?
Good. How are you, Russell?
Oh, not too bad. I got to be honest. I'm just getting over, well, not all the way through it, but I've been sick all week, so it's been kind of a nasty week for me. I don't know what I got, but it's been ugly. It's been a chore just to be able to try to do this today, but I really wanted to do it and get it out there for everybody.
I appreciate you having me today.
Yeah, no problem. Let's start by this. Usually what I do is I like to give everybody an opportunity to sort of introduce themselves, and I'm going to do that for you here in a second. But I want to start with sort of how I met you. I don't even know if you remember that or not, and sort of like our background history. So Jason, I met, it's got to be close to probably 20 years ago, maybe, or right around there. And I met you, I believe, I know it was at a show. I think it might have been at Novi. I'm not really sure if it was Novi or what was the other smaller one?
I think it was Birch Run. I think we met. Yeah, I think we met in Birch Run. Yep.
And at that time, I think you were helping out. You might have even been working for, one of the lure companies. And sort of doing some pro staff / I think maybe even some regular work for them. I was pro staffing at the time for some other companies, and we were working, I think, Broadlow's booth together. Old Charlie over there.
Charlie, great guy. Yeah, I got my start, and if you want to call it the fishing industry, I got my start with Captain Mark Verink from Real Action Charters in Grand Haven. I was married, 2 small children, and I had a salmon fishing addiction. The only way I could scratch the salmon fishing addiction cost effectively was to work in the lure shop after my regular job. So I spent many mornings. I was a third shifter at the time. Many mornings at the Action Fly and Fuzzy Bear shop.
Yeah, absolutely. So then that kind of grew into a relationship that we went along with, where the Salmon Showdown really got going. I mean, obviously, you were already fishing some tournaments. I was fishing some tournaments, but we really weren't interacting. And then all of a sudden, here comes Salmon Showdown, and you were fishing on a team that happened to, beat me twice in the Salmon Showdown Championship. And I was obviously captaining a couple different teams, really the same team ran by me, but a couple different groups of individuals who, we were traveling across the lake and stuff. And, we just grew to be buddies because we were all trying to hit the same goal here. So Early Bird was that boat you were fishing on, and that was obviously a ton of fun for those years.
Oh, absolutely. My dad and I had a 31 Chris Craft Commander. About the same time I met you in Novi. We just purchased that boat, and we were starting to fish the tournament circuit. It probably lasted 3-4 years on the Chris Craft, and my dad just decided that getting up at 4:30 in the morning every weekend just wasn't what someone in their late 60s wants to do. And he said he had enough. We sold the boat, and I was fortunate enough to meet Captain Ray. He was 2 slips over at the same marina, and the rest is history. I fished on Early Bird from 2011 until 2016, and nice little run there. We won some big tournaments, and we won Salmon Showdown twice. So I was really grateful to have that opportunity to fish on that boat. And like I said, I had 2 young kids, and they welcomed me with open arms, and we were very successful together.
Yeah, and you and I've always thought it was interesting. We share a couple passions together that a lot of people maybe at home don't know. So obviously we both have a salmon addiction, but you also are maybe not as much anymore like me, but at one time were a big bowler, and now you're raising 2 boys who are just crushing it in the youth bowling industry, which for me is really fun to watch, because not a lot of people at home probably know that I was a state champion in Wisconsin and had a full ride opportunity to a couple different colleges that I passed up on when I was in my upper teens there, a senior in high school. So, and I know you've had some success bowling in some tournaments, and now you're raising 2 boys that are just crushing it. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about looking and stuff.
So yeah, I grew up in a bowling center. I literally worked, Grand Haven, Michigan. I worked at Starlight Lanes, and there's nothing to do on the lakeshore in Michigan in the winter unless you like to ski, and I don't. And ice fish, I don't, because I get enough fishing during the summer. So bowling was it for me. Got into bowling really, really competitively. Went out and got my pro card in 2007, and I bowled regionals until I think 2016, right about when my kids got involved in youth bowling. And then we were spending 4 or 5 days a week in the bowling center, and I just said, you know what, I was spending so much time in the bowling center that when the kids didn't have to bowl, I definitely wasn't going to go. So I kind of gave it up on my own, and then started coaching. My U15 national team has won 2 national championships back-to-back years down in Smyrna, Tennessee. My high school team won state championship last year as a team, and Kyle's sophomore year, he won the state championship as an individual. So, again, very fortunate. Things fell into place. My kids, they have outstanding work ethics, and they're just great kids. So I'm blessed.
Yeah, well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And you guys had major success in Salmon Showdown, and obviously the kids are killing it in bowling. So let's talk a little bit about this last season. So you approached me in the off season, which was great. Kind of rekindled our friendship a little bit. Like I said, we've been friends for a long time, but obviously, as things have gotten busier and busier for me with children, Salmon Candy, when I was running Anglers Avenue. There was just a lot going on, and I stepped back a little bit from the tournament scene, so I hadn't seen a lot of my friends in Michigan as much as I'd like to. A little bit in the off season at the shows and stuff here and there, and you called me and said, hey, we're hearing really great stuff about your Salmon Candy stuff, and I put some of that into our program, and I was really happy to bring you into our family and sort of our Salmon Candy family, and sort of really what I was excited about was to get some of your insight on the other side of the lake on what you thought about what we had and what you thought about what we needed. So why don't you maybe take a little bit of time and run us through the first tournament of the year, where you started, the boat you fish on now, which is a little bit different than where you used to fish, obviously, and you got kind of this two-boat dynamic. So maybe explain the two-boat dynamic, and then let's start at tournament number 1 and kind of what happened and what went down there.
Well, just a slight background. I got out of tournament fishing in 2017. A really good friend of mine, Joe Irwin, approached me and said, hey, I have a salmon boat and you're welcome to use it. Ray had sold his boat and went to the walleye thing, and I'm not a walleye fisherman. It's just not my gig. He said, I know you're looking for a boat. You're looking for a boat. I said, man, I'm really not looking for a boat. Kind of want to be done with it for a minute, just kind of step away. But he said, you know what? The keys are always there. You're always welcome to go. Call me, anytime you want to. So he was really, it was instrumental in getting me back. I was kind of burned out. We fun fished for a few years, fished 1 tournament a year. And then my son reached the age, Kyle, he reached the age of, 15, 16, and he got a job at Chinook Pier on the Goodeye. And he made it for Captain C.J. Annister. Between his sophomore and junior year, which would have been last summer. And then this summer, CJ wanted to fish more tournaments and fish less charters. Him and his dad have an electrical business that's doing really well, and he just wants to transition more towards the tournament fishing side of things. So he sat down with me last winter and said, you and Kyle, me and my dad, what do you think? And we had a lot of success just fishing 1 tournament a year on the Shining Times. We actually went up to Ludington during COVID, and we won the Ruby Thursday. We almost won the Big Boy. We're 1 fish away on Tuesday from winning the Big Boy. Unfortunate, and I had a nice little group of guys. We were really having fun. And I just told CJ, I'm not coming without Matt and Colton and Joey. And he said, bring them. So the rest is history. So I didn't mean to go on a tangent, but anyways, our first tournament, we went down into, we took the boat from Grand Haven down to Michigan City. They actually drove the boat down. It was 27 degrees, and they had 2 inches of freezing spray across the bow when they got to Michigan City. It was a very cold spring. Everybody knows it was, unseasonably cold spring, even for Michigan standards. There was coho everywhere. You couldn't go anywhere and not catch a coho. I mean, they were just everywhere. The trout fishing on the rock pile, and if anybody knows Michigan City and they know New Buffalo, they know the rock pile. The trout fishing was just starting to dry up when we got there. We had really, really good trout fishing on Thursday. I think we actually had 90 pounds. We had 2 kings over 25, and we had 3 trout over 19 pounds. So we had dang near 90, almost 100 pounds on Thursday. Of course, they're not there on game day, right?
Yeah.
We caught a lot of little fish in the Michigan City tournament, but it was a good tune-up for all of us guys fishing together for the first time.
So was the game plan to fish the rock pile for trout, and then you were obviously looking for a coho for the rest of them?
The game plan in Michigan City was to go fish the rock pile, get our trout, run to St. Joe, the power plant. Everybody knows where the power plant is. It's in like 35, 40 foot of water. And it's fenced off, and there's a warm water outlet. You can't get any closer. It's fenced off. But there's some green water, sometimes even brown water down there, because it's only about 6-7 miles south of the harbor. Usually holds coho, and if you're gonna catch kings and the water's like icy cold, it's about the only place that are gonna keep any concentration of kings. And you want to know the what we were catching our kings on. Not typically a spring rig. We're using an 8-inch chrome Dreamweaver. What's the name of that spinny? It's chrome and green. I can't remember the name of it, but I tied up a Pickled Sunshine vegan rig, and that's what we were getting our kings on.
Yeah. That doesn't. Yeah. Yeah, it's an aggressive program, but obviously, like you said, for the fish that are in there, they're in there feeding, so it's not a super big surprise they're going to be aggressive. I know, guys pretty much think of plugs in the fall, but plugs can also be a really good spring bait. There's got to be fish around to eat them, but they can be a really good spring bait. So
we had a good shot. We had a Pro Black Dot Atomic on the chute when we were fishing in that, and we had a good shot on. Of course, we didn't land it. That's how it goes on tournament day.
I fished that Michigan City tournament one time, and it was a year that happened to be really, really tough fishing. I think a lot of boats didn't even get their fish. The coho fishing was tough. We fished the rock pile for trout. I think caught a couple of kings off the rock pile. But go to show you kind of how it was. You might have been there that year. You probably were. But I think we had big trout that year with 15 pounds. Mm-hmm. So that was, there just was not a lot of fish around. They weren't biting very well. It was tough. It was definitely tough swimming.
Talking to a lot of the captains. I spent a lot of time on the dock down in Michigan City. This is the first time I've been there since 2005, maybe 2006. So it's been 15, 16 years since I've been down there. And Joe Crank, good friend of mine, he fishes out of Indiana, and he swears by. It's like the June in Grand Haven, like the 2 days before the offshore, the kings are gone. It just happens every year. And he says the same thing about the Michigan City Coho Classic. He says 2-3 days before the tournament, the trout just leave the rock pile like they know it's tournament day. Like they just know it. Like, okay, yeah, well, we had great fishing on Thursday. He goes, you won't on Saturday. So he was right.
Well, some of that I still think to this day is, especially in that shallower water, I think it has a lot to do with boat traffic, right? There's fish in there, but when you start getting 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 boats starting to pound on them in that 40, 60, 80, 30, 20 foot of water, A, a bunch get caught, and then B, that boat traffic just scatters a whole bunch of them. So that's not ideal. So you fished at Michigan City one. That one didn't go super well. Then you guys went to St. Joe, and that went pretty well. Why don't you talk a little bit about kind of how that.
So yeah, in Michigan City we got our fish both days, but we didn't catch big fish. We had to rely on just coho for numbers. We went up to we went up to St. Joe, and St. Joe was a Friday, Saturday tournament because Mother's Day is on Sunday. So they run that Friday, Saturday. That only left us one day to pre-fish because everyone on our team's got a real job and Kyle's in school. So, we come down Thursday and they have like a fun tournament, $100 entry fee. Every tournament's got these now on Thursday. You pay $100 and, no rules and all this other stuff. So we go, our game plan was to go up to South Haven. We had heard there was nice fish caught up by the power plant in South Haven. We ran up there. We had, I don't know, 5, 6 bites. We put a mature in the boat. We missed a mature. And then our plan was to go out to where everybody fishes trout, straight out in that 130 out of South Haven. and we were catching 4-pound trout, 4-pound trout, 4-pound trout, 4-pound trout. And we had a decent catch. We didn't have any big fish. We only had probably the one kicker fish, average 4-year-old and a decent 4-year-old. And then we had a bunch of 4 or 5 pound trout. And I'll never forget this. We're debating on whether we go away, right? And I've fished tournaments for years. I'm a 20-year tournament veteran. So I told the guys, I go, we got about a 7th, 8th place finish here. If we run in and we weigh, we're done fishing for the day. We may as well go get gas and get a bottle of whiskey and start drinking. Right. That's it. I go, but what's going to happen Friday, Saturday? We can do the same thing, and we're going to finish 7th or 8th again. We just don't have a program. Right. So there was a debate on what to do. And I said, I've never done it. I said, let's go offshore to the trout hole, the famous offshore trout hole. And we pulled the chart up. Nobody on the boat has ever been out there. I mean, nobody on the boat's ever been out there. So we picked a spot that we thought, yeah, that's got to be it. Everyone that's talked about it says it's right here. This is the drop off, and this is the hole. And I'll be damned if we didn't go out there and find them. I mean, it was unbelievable. I've never seen fishing like that in my life.
Just that fast and furious, you mean?
It didn't matter what you put in the water. It didn't matter if it was a 2-color or if the rigger was 400 down. We catch coho on the surface. We catch kings 40 to 70 down. And we catch trout 100 down to the bottom. Anywhere you put it. I mean, it was 4 or 5 fish on a time. And we kind of putzed in. We released all of our trout. We stopped. We pulled all the rods that were catching silverfish. Like, no more. And then we get back and we're cleaning fish. And it was really inconspicuous. In fact, Charlie helped me clean fish that day. We're cleaning a bunch of small trout. And he's like, man, you guys spent a long day out there. I go, logged a lot of miles. You know how it goes. Yeah. We just hit the lottery. I couldn't believe it. I'd never seen anything like it in tournament fishing. The next day, it was 4-footers, and we were staring at a 39-mile run, and we made it in 4-footers. I'm like, CJ said, I don't care if it takes me 3 hours to get there, and we catch our fish in an hour and a half. Yeah. And I'm telling you, I never seen nothing like it. Our observer was in tears. He's like, I'm 6 years old. I've never seen fishing like this in my life. It was incredible.
So the first day you got
fish. Yep, got over fish. We actually left early because, like I said, it was rough. And we come back in. We still had one slot because it's a slot tournament. I think it's 20. And we left a slot just to go in and troll in 30 foot of water, try to catch king in the last 2 hours, and we caught one. I think we caught 11, 12-pound king. So it was an upgrade. And the next day we went out, and our last rod had two 13-pound trout on it. Same rod.
Any particular stuff working for you that day on day one?
Day one was it was raining. It was raining and it was overcast. So the trout bite wasn't as fast. Because, anybody that's fished trout out that deep knows that bright sunny day is what you want if you're fishing 200-300 down for trout. But our salmon bite was okay. But the problem with the salmon bite was you catch coho and salmon, and you catch 4-pounders and you catch 12-pounders, So basically our first day, I would say our best bait was an orange. I might butcher this, man. You might have to help me. Gold orange stud.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yep.
Gold orange stud.
Gold blank orange stud. Yep.
Yep. And that was on our 100 copper all spring. I mean, it was out every day until the middle of June. That took a lot of fish. A hollow darling on a 250, I think, was a really good bait. Purple stud mag on a 200 copper. Those are our top 3 baits out there for salmon. Captain Gary's. Captain Gary's super slim, but that's basically just a blue veggie, right? So Those were our 4 best baits for kings. Our trout were coming on chrome flashers. I'm going to butcher this one too. I think it's a Megatron. Okay. One of them was a Megatron on the outdown, and that had a glow gig Wonder Bread.
Yeah. So for people at home, they usually use a lot of spinning glows. Dreamweaver makes a product called a Whirly Gig, which is a plastic version. And that glow underbred was actually a custom color I had to make for me at the store that I think they make now, and it's obviously a good color. So was anybody else out there, or were you guys
No,
the only guys out there? No.
no, we were the only boat out there. The only boat we could see for 2 days out there.
So did it have to do with the fact that it was rough, or did just nobody get on the fish that you got on?
Well, so if anyone that fishes the Southern Michigan tournaments, like they've changed the rules a little bit, where if you go offshore, you can only bring 6 trout back to the scales. That's all you can. In St. Joe, you can bring 6 trout back to scales. We haven't fished South Haven. I don't know what the rules are there. So if you're gonna make a 39-mile run, you can't go out there if it's just trout, because then you have to come back in. You waste an hour and a half of running, and then you still got to get your silvers. So I don't. And a lot of people think that the trout hole out there is fished out. That was what I used to hear all the time. Like when I wasn't on the tournament circuit anymore, I go, well, St. Joe, I seen some of the weights and they were lower. I'm like, isn't anybody going out to get those trout anymore? Oh, they're gone. They're not there anymore. They got fished out. You hear, you know what you hear. I just think after a couple of years of guys going out there and not doing so well, and then the rule changing, so it made it a lot tougher to make the decision to run out there. Guys just stopped going.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
You say that because, or you talk about that strategy. So something that I believe in that's really much different than almost all the other avid Great Lakes anglers that I know is, when you're a kid or when you're growing up and you listen to people tell you, they all tell you that the fish migrate south to north, right? Everybody tells you that they're biting in Ludington this weekend, and next weekend it's Manistee, and the following weekend it's Frankfurt. And I've promoted for years, and people looked at me sideways, and I've said I believe that wholeheartedly for coho, but that's it. I believe wholeheartedly for kings, lake trout, steelhead. They actually move east and west. Now, I'm not saying that they won't move around north and south, but what I'm saying is they winter out in the deep water. I believe they hibernate out there, out in the deep water. So those fish that you intercepted, they were there all winter long.
Yep.
You caught them there, and they're going to work their way in to feed more heavily, in towards the shoreline when the water warmed up and they got their signal, whatever their internal signal is, that, hey, winter's over, it's our time to go in. It's likely that it was as good as it was and as loaded as it was for you because it was a cold winter and a cold spring, and the fish, didn't get that signal that, hey, it's time to go in. So there was just a lot more out there than there usually is, which is
for sure.
Probably wasn't as many on the shoreline as there usually is. That equaled out.
The inshore temperature was of 46 degrees, 44 degrees. I mean, sometimes 43 degrees. And then we go out to the middle of the lake and it's 39 on the surface, 38. Like the lake was a month behind.
Exactly. So to me, that solidifies, what I've thought for years. And again, I'm not saying it's every fish or whatever. I just believe the volume of them head out to the middle of the lake to winter and work their way back into the shore in the spring/early summer. Versus, I don't believe all the fish swim down to Portage, Indiana, and work their way back up. And people say, well, you can see it, bang, they're biting in Manistee today or Ludington today and Manistee next week and Frankfurt the week after. Well, are they biting there because the fish moved north, or are they biting there because the water warmed up as you went up the shoreline week after week after week? And those fish worked their way in from out deep. So just an interesting sort of sidebar, but why don't you walk us through day 2? Or, well, first of all, tell us where you were at after day 1, and then walk us into day 2.
Well, it couldn't have set up any better for us, Ross. I think we're in third, fourth. I don't know. We're in third, fourth, something like that. So we're in the middle of the pack. We just caught our fish, and we had nice fish, right? Like I said, it was raining. It was overcast, and everyone on the boat was just confident. Like, look, tomorrow the forecast is for sun. No clouds. Like, we know the big trout are going to bite tomorrow. And we were confident. Like, we're confident the big trout are going to bite in the sun. We're fishing these trout, 250 to 400 down. So if they can't see it, they can't eat it, right? So it was really fortunate. And I know Jeremy, Innuendo, they ran up to Saugatuck to fish the mud because the Kings had showed up in the mud. And that's a massive run from St. Joe to Saugatuck. They ran as far north as we ran west.
He's got the boat to do it.
Yes, no doubt about that. But we were fortunate to put those big trout in the boat day too. Like I said, it was just unbelievable. We were at the end of the day, we're fishing 4 rods just to stop catching small fish. And the last fish that went took the out down, and it was 300 down. I literally could not move it. I couldn't move it. I'm like, guys, this is a big boy. Comes up. There's one on the main and there's one on the slider. They're both 13 pounds. Trout. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's set up just perfectly, and I think we had our limit by 11. Because it was an hour and a half to get out there. I was probably 10. It was an hour and a half to get out there, and then we still had a big run back in. We caught our fish fast, and we caught the right ones. And it was just when those fish hit the net, we just knew. It was I think it was about 120. Yeah, about 120 pound box. That's good spring box, especially for trout fishing.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Yeah, and you guys ended up winning that event then?
Yep, we ended up winning the St. Joe event. Then we took the South Haven. We took South Haven off because Kyle has an MJMA that weekend. It's always one of the bigger MJMAs of the year. I got my dogs. They want to get in on the action. So we skip South Haven, and then we go to Grand Haven first weekend in June.
Let's talk a little bit about the next event then, which I know was a little bit special too, Grand Haven. Kind of walk us through that thing and how that worked out for you.
So in 2020, my good friend Joe Irwin and I, we bought the Shining Times 31 Sierra 1986. It stays in Grand Haven all the time. That's our fun fishing boat. We decided to put a crew on my boat and then fish for amateur, and then we took Good Eye and fished the pro. So we had two boats in the tournament, one in the amateur division, one in the pro division. My boat was one of my best friends, Tom Garrison. You remember Tom?
Yep.
He used to work all the shows with us. He captained, and then my son, Kyle, Colton, and my friend Joe. So they ran my boat, and then Good Eye was myself, CJ, Tom, Joe, and Matt. That was it was a good weekend. Kind of the same game plan, fishing kind of the same location, same fish. We ran way west and fished some of those deep trout.
So did you physically run to the St. Joe spot?
No. If you know Lake Michigan, you know where the Southern Basin. So the southern tip of the Southern Basin is you can reach from St. Joe. Well, the northern tip of the Southern Basin you can reach from Grand Haven.
Right.
And we just we fished the Southern Basin.
So it was different fish that you were fishing. You were running
it was quite different, and it's funny you said you think that's we intercepted wintering kings. I wholeheartedly believe that because the kings were not there in the numbers that they were 3 weeks earlier because they pushed inshore. We had just had incredible fishing in Grand Haven. But a lot of the bigger kings in the spring, typically our big kings show up first. And then by Memorial Day, all the fish you're fishing are, 4 to 11 pounds.
Right.
And then by the time tournament rolled around, that's what you're fishing. You're fishing 4 to 11 pound kings. And there was tournament boats that weekend that were catching limits in an hour, but they weren't catching fish over 10 pounds. So, I mean, you run out, set your rods and catch 20 kings that are, 55 pounds. Big deal. Ain't gonna do you any good. So the fishing was incredible, but we had small fish around. Now, when we ran out to the spot, in the Southern Basin that we'd been pre-fishing, it was the same deal, big trout. We didn't get them. My boat got them.
Right. So what was the program for the big trout for this? Was it the same thing, flashers with a spinning glow or whirly jig behind it, or did you have to change things up a little bit?
So the program for trout and the Grand Haven offshore were Blue Bubble spin doctors. Blue Bubble spin doctors, all chrome spin doctors with blue waffle spinning glows. They didn't take the Wonder Breads. They switched over to the blues. RJB on a 450 was taking trout. Yeah, those are probably the Blue Waffle was stud out there. I mean, Blue Waffle Spin and Glow on Chrome and Blue Spin Doctors. Up top,
What was your king stuff out there?
there wasn't for us. There wasn't a lot of kings. I know a boat out there that caught them. We couldn't get them going on anything. Or steelhead, we put quite a few steelhead in the boat. And immatures, a couple coho, but they were the same program as Michigan City. Orange stud, gold orange stud, and the blue veggie. Captain Gary Super Slim.
So, and didn't you say, I think in purple stud you said was real good out there too, or was that
Purple,
later?
Purple stud was amazing. It was probably my favorite bait in the spring. Purple stud for kings. I mean, big kings. And I was running a 200 and 225 copper. But when we went out there was no big kings. There was steelhead and cohos. So it saw the water, but it didn't produce out there. It produced like hand over fist for the 2 weeks prior to the Grand Haven tournament when we were fishing in that 140 to 160. I mean, it was out on both sides. I literally run, and then the Mountain Dew stud was double stacked on a rigger, anywhere from 55 to 75 down. And it's funny you bring up the stud because on Sunday, Shining Times only had 6 fish, I think it was, at 11 o'clock. They just could not get them going on Sunday. So they ran in, and Kyle put Mountain Dew stud down on the shoot rigger, 70 down. It took our biggest king of the day. So, yeah, in the spring, I'm inshore fishing. Those two were phenomenal baits. Anytime there was good-sized Chinook around, they would take those baits.
So the Shining Time wins the amateur division. You guys struggled a little bit in the pro, but you basically worked the same program with a lot of the same gear and a lot of the same stuff. So in theory, it was just that old adage, which is you can have the nicest boat in the world, you can have all the best equipment, you can have all the same stuff, but there's still a little wiggle that's involved, is what I like to call it, that makes a big difference.
Well, it goes to show you, like AJ, I can't remember his last name, a guy that fished the tournament circuit about 15 years ago. He always said, you gotta put him in the boat on game day. The most tournament, you're fishing 9 rods, and Ray said it all the time, I need 20 bites to get my 12. I need 20 bites to get my 12. And, I did a podcast with Adam a couple months ago, and Adam really, reel to reel, he really, like, very, very meticulous about his tackle and very meticulous about, on game day, everything's got to be right. My boat had 13 bites, I think 12, something like that to catch their 10. So they capitalized on all their bites, and they were good on the rods. They were good on the net, and a little luck never hurt, right? They hook up better. For us, we had 18 bites and did not get our fish, 18 or 19 bites and did not get our fish. Hey, that's fishing, but we, my dad always said, "You're not holding your mouth right, son. Something's different."
Yeah,
had it going
exactly. on. Exactly. I want to kind of. I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit and answer it, in all honesty, because you can be honest, and that's fine with me. But I want to squash a little bit of a quote unquote, rumor that I think runs around about Salmon Candy spoons. And you and I have been doing this a long time. We've both been around a lot of tackle. I don't know if I've ever even told this story on air, but I'm going to tell it right now if I haven't. Maybe I have. I forget. But the first sports show I ever went to was at Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I was 16 years old, and I had started pro staffing for Michigan Stinger that year. Anybody who knows anything about Michigan Stinger from years ago, maybe into today, I have to admit I haven't used this Stinger now in about 4 or 5 years, but maybe into today, knows that the type of blank that they have does not like to hold paint very well. They just, the paint doesn't hold up super well on them, especially their hex dimple pattern ones versus their flat. Long story short, I'll make this story quick. I was in the booth with Terry Weber, the owner of Stinger, who's passed away now, bless his heart. And a customer walked up, and he had a little brown sandwich bag, and he opened it up, and he handed some spoons to Terry, and he said, I'd like to get some new ones. These just didn't last very long. These spoons were all like bent, twisted.
Sure.
Paint was off. You could tell that these spoons had been fished, right? And they had caught some fish. Now, mind you, I'm 40 years old, so this is like 24 years ago. I think stingers were like 3 for $10 at the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably.
Something like that, right? So this guy's looking for some new spoons. I could see the steam coming out of Terry's ear from a mile away, right? So he looked at the guy and he said, I tell you what. He said, I'm going to do you one better. He said, follow me. And he said, Russell, come along. He walked straight across through the Silver Streak booth. And he was very good friends with Chip Cartwright, who owns Silver Streak. I think Chip was in the corner, so Chip wouldn't take any offense to this by any means. It was a joke, you know. But he walked into the Silver Streak booth. I remember he pulled a $20 bill out of his pocket. He handed it to the customer, and he said, pick out whatever spoons you want. The customer kind of looked at him funny. He's like, well, your booth is over there. He's like, you're right. You won't have to worry about the fish chewing up their spoons anymore. You won't have to worry about the paint coming off. And he turned around and walked away.
Right.
But he made his point. His point was, you know, my stuff catches fish. You know, that's why it gets tore up. And, you know, we're not afraid to say that, you know, hey, we feel you got your value out of the stuff. So long story short, when I was working on a spoon for Salmon Candy, you know, I felt there was a lot of spoons out there that were what I would consider heavy. You know, the number one spoon on the market, as far as I'm concerned, for king salmon is Moonshine. And even though the blank isn't super heavy, because they coat it with such a thick coating of glow, it's heavy.
It's heavy.
Dreamweaver's blank is very heavy. The Super Slim is very heavy. They're durable, but they're extremely heavy, right?
Yep.
So really, the only lightweight spoon on the market was the Michigan Stinger and the Stingray. And I always had a lot of success with those because I like to troll slow. So I wanted a spoon that I could put my spread at 1.8, 1.9, 2.0, 2.1 and get a nice action out of it without having to really rip that spoon through the water. So, you know, we came up with that spoon that we have today. And overall, to be honest with you, I haven't heard a lot of complaints, but I've definitely had some individuals who have YouTube channels and different things who just don't like Salmon Candy or don't like me, I'm sure, you know, take what I think is an unfair shot at the spoon and say that, you know, it's not durable, it doesn't hold up. You've sent me some pictures that seem to me that sort of prove the opposite. You've caught some fish on some of them spoons. Talk about just your honest experience using it and how you felt, you know, value-wise at $7-8 a spoon, what you got out of it.
I'll be honest with you. I wish I'd have been a little more prepared for this. So, you know, I think you reached out to me Tuesday, and I coach high school bowling. So the last 2 nights I've been in a bowling center. If I'd had a little more time to prep, I had brought the spoons that I caught fish on last year, and I was on reel to reel with my team in the middle of June with spoons that I fished for 2 months. I laid them out on the table. If anybody wants to see, you know, what 2 months and I had my top spoons, Dreamweaver or Salmon Candy, or Dreamweaver or Salmon Candy flies, and I laid them on the table. They'd all been fished from mid-April to mid-June, 3 months. You tell me. I think that orange stud probably caught 75 fish, and it'll catch 75 more in the spring. I don't doubt it. So I never had a problem. I think I had a purple stud where a king kind of put a twist, probably put like a banana twist in it. And Kyle goes, Dad, what we can do with this? I said, bend it back close to straight and send it. And he sent it back out and barely clipped the board on. It's already going again. Like, apparently, we call it on the Michigan side. I don't know what you guys call it, but we call it trained. I don't want a spoon out of the package. That's the last thing I want is a spoon out of the package because then I got to put it in the water and then I got to catch fish on it to get it trained.
Yeah,
I'll take flies and I'll throw them in the cooler with the ice and the fish slime, and then I'll put them in my hands and I'll wad it up, you know, and I got tinsel on my hands and everything's tangled, and then I'll shove line through it and put a couple beads in it and fish it. I don't want it brand new out of the package. I don't want it to look. I don't want it to look beautiful. I want it to look natural. I want it to have a little, you know, what are we trying to imitate with a spoon? I mean, ask yourself. Wounded bait fish. So if it's got a little character to it, give me that spoon.
Yeah, so I mean, the goal of this comment wasn't really to protect Salmon Candy or to get you to do anything. That's why I didn't prep you for it, because I wanted an honest answer. But we call them broken in or chewed up on this side. Right. That's kind of, it's the same thing. But the point just was to it that, you know, I feel like in this business, there's a lot of really good products. There really is.
Oh, yeah.
I've said this for years. I mean,
It's probably the best it's ever been. I've been doing this 25 years, and I don't think there's not many major tackle companies that are targeting Great Lakes anglers that make bad stuff.
Exactly.
You won't find one.
There's good stuff out there. Stinger makes
Yeah.
good stuff. Dreamweaver makes good stuff. Moonshine makes good stuff. Salmon Candy makes good stuff. It really boils down to what suits your needs, and in a lot of cases, you need a little mix of a whole bunch of it to cover all the bases that you're really looking to cover. But, it just, to me, I feel like our spoon, our Magnum, our Standard, our Minis, they really have a time and place for guys, and a lot of guys, and they just don't get the use quite yet that they probably will here in the next couple of years as more guys like myself, like you, and some others get them in their hands and get out there and talk about them and promote them.
What's funny? It's funny you bring that up. I want to talk about that for a second. Our Super Slims and Salmon Candies seem to run perfect together. I don't fish. In fact, I don't think I ever fished a regular Dreamweaver or a Fuzzy Bear mag in my spread with Super Slims or Salmon Candies. And in the spring, Salmon Candies just flat out produce. The Salmon Candy spoons. I was bugging you. Hey, look what we're catching fish on. Look what we're catching fish on. Look what we're catching fish on. And I remember you're like, you got to tell me what spoons work because I don't fish them.
Yep.
You're like, I don't fish spoons. I'm a rotator guy. I'm like, man, in the spring here, you got to have spoons in the water on the Michigan side. And Salmon Candy spoons shined in the spring and the very early summer up until about the 4th of July and until about Ludington tournament. And then it's no secret on the Michigan side, everybody fishes moonshines from the middle of July until the end of the season.
Yep.
That's, So I'm glad you brought that up. Time and a place that I saw for the Salmon Candy spoons, especially the Salmon Candy spoons, was in the spring. They were very good. They're very productive in the spring.
Well, and that's why we know that, or I know that the biggest hole I feel we have that we're going to work on this year is, producing a few more patterns and specific select patterns that we're going to probably lean on guys like you. Not probably, we will lean on guys like you. I feel like our glow stuff did really, really well last year. Gold Booger Nose was on fire on both lakes, Lake Ontario, Lake Michigan. The Bloody Nose, the Frozen Nose, the Wonder Bread. But we're really going to put some R&D this year with guys like yourself and a few others into another half a dozen or so glow patterns, so we can be competitive in that, July and August and September timeframe. Because we got some good stuff, but we obviously don't have the glow assortment that companies like Moonshine and Dreamweaver and Stinger and some of the other guys have. So we'll look to up that game for sure. But one of the other things I was really excited about last year was your success with our 8-inch flashers. And you obviously have been a spinny guy. I mean, for as long as I've known you, 20 plus years. You've been a pretty hardcore spinny guy and had a lot of success with 11-inch paddles and 8-inch spinnies and some 10-inch spinnies. But you were able to sort of, put some of the 8-inch Salmon Candy stuff into your spread. Was there specific times and places that you felt, that worked, or did they work a lot for you throughout the whole season? Just was a matter of figuring out the color.
When I was fishing in cold water, it seemed like the Salmon Candy rotators produced well. I don't understand it. I don't, but we have warm water in Lake Michigan on the Michigan side in the summer. It's warm. I mean, you get your prevailing southwest winds, right? So we get packed with warm water. And for spinnies, I think they work a little bit better when the water's warm. So in the spring, the Salmon Candy rotators work really well. And then we switch over to a little bit more. The spin doctors, the fish pick them out a little bit more when the water warms up. But the fish blades seem to catch fish, and not a lot of fish because you're targeting big kings with the fish blades. But it seemed like your fish blades would always put a bonus 20-pounder in the boat. If you ran it Saturday and Sunday, you'd probably put one or two bonus nice kings in the boat with it. And my favorite thing to run on those were vegan rigs. which is why you and I, when I reached out to you in the spring, I saw the vegan rigs and I thought that really intrigued me. Because I like to tie a lot of my own stuff. I tie my own meat rigs. I don't fish meat rigs out of the package. Everybody knows that. There's very, very few meat rigs I will take out of the package and fish. I tie my own. I get a fly pattern I like. I get 3-4 of them I tie up. And I thought, you know what? Meat has been really touch and go lately. If they're on it, they're on it. If they're not, they won't touch it. I don't know why. It's not how it was, 7-8 years ago, where 4th of July you could just switch over to meat and they just chewed on it. I think there's way more forage, so the fish can be pickier, and the fish are pickier now. I mean, the fishing's better, but the fish are pickier. You really got to pay attention to what's in the water. I would say, when the kingfishing was really tough back in the, 15, 16, 17, those years, the old standbys would get bit. But now, they are just picky. If you got a pattern working, go with it. And so, like I said, I didn't mean to get sideways on that one, but sometimes I think a meatless option was a good way to go.
Yeah, for sure. No, there's no doubt that we've seen significant success all over the Great Lakes, on Lake Michigan and on Lake Ontario, especially with the vegan rigs. And we've seen that with the 10-inch flashers. And I'm going to do something that I didn't plan. That's why I got up a second ago. Might as well show the world with something, a little secret that I let you in on already last year as we were testing it a little bit. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough supply to be handing it around. But
yeah, I don't ever remember getting one.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming. It's coming soon. Like a couple of weeks away here, probably from everybody being able to get their hands on them, and you'll have yours in plenty of time for fishing season. But here's just a couple of looks of what's coming, and that is 11-inch Salmon Candy flashers, which you and I are both fans of big paddles. We both like big paddles in certain situations. And this is where I think that warm water thing is really going to play a role for Salmon Candy, because I know when I come to the Michigan side, I almost always have at least 2 big paddles on, maybe even 3 at times, because in that warm water, they really seem to work. Mm-hmm. So, here's a white UV Super Frog, one of our top patterns. Here's a white icon, in an 11-inch. These are sitting on my desk here that I was getting ready to take pictures of. Here's a Lucky Charm, in an 11-inch.
That looks good.
Here's a Chrome Super Frog. And these are going to be available. I don't even know if I know. I got the list, but I think it's somewhere around 25 patterns or something, including 6 new ones or something that'll be on the 8-inch and 11-inch this year, and the 10-inch fish blades. But I think that's really going to help round out the Salmon Candy paddle lineup, as we'll have the 8-inch, we'll have the 11-inch, and we'll have that 10-inch fish blade. And my hopes is that, for yourself, from the summertime when you're really racking them on the spinnies, and spinnies work for me in that time frame as well, you'll be able to add a few of these to your spread and catch some fish on them as well, with the vegan rigs, with flies, with meat, with any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember back to the days when you guys were beating up on us in the Salmon Showdown, where the 11-inch paddle was a mainstay for you guys.
Oh, yeah. I miss those. I miss the day where I could just go to the boat in the morning and pick out 5 paddles and 4 J plugs and just go fishing. Those days are gone. They're gone. We used to, Ray and I, we would run big paddles on the divers, big paddles on all the riggers, and plugs on everything else, and we'd go salmon fishing. But the fishery is much healthier than it was back then. 15, 16-pound fish were big back then. Now the fishery's healthy. We probably had the best September I've ever had. 25 fish trips were normal in September out of Grand Haven, all silver, no trout, not even targeting trout. We were catching 3-year-olds upwards of 17, 18 pounds. Silver, silver. Like these are next year's fish. The fishery is very healthy, lots of bait, natural reproduction's up, and plants are up. So, fishing in Lake Michigan is looking very good and promising for the next half dozen years, in my opinion.
Well, this has been a ton of fun because you and I have, we have similar backgrounds, we have similar interests, and we have similar takes on a lot of stuff, including the subject you just mentioned. I think the next 6 to 8 years is going to be some of the better salmon fishing we've had in both of our lifetimes on Lake Michigan. I just think the fishery is really healthy. They're putting some more fish in the lake. I think the lake can handle some more fish. I
Yes.
think what it's going to do is it's going to make these fish compete a little more for bait, which will mean that they got to chase a little bit, which means the
Mm-hmm.
fishing will get better.
Fishing should get better. Yep.
Things are going to get really, really exciting. Before we wrap up here, have you guys made your plans for the 2023 tournament season yet, or are you still kind of looking at that?
The last time I talked to CJ, I think we're going to basically do. It's going to be close to what we did last year. The only point of contention is the Ludington tournament. So we're going to fish Michigan City. We're going to fish St. Joe. I think we're going to add South Haven. Whether I'm there or not, they may just fish South Haven because the fishing's really good that time of year, and it's kind of a no-brainer what to do. I don't know if Kyle's going to bowl that tournament or not. But anyhow, we're going to fish Grand Haven. That'll be for sure. It'll be 2 boats in Grand Haven. That might be the only port we do that out of. We did it out of Muskegon last year, and we were in Ludington. They were in Muskegon, and that one kind of went sideways, and we didn't have enough guys on either boat. But we're going to go to Ludington. We're going to definitely fish Saugatuck, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but we may be making a trip to make a cheese run.
There you go. There you go. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know CJ really wants to get over there and fish a tournament, so I don't know if it's going to work this year, but definitely in the next couple of years for sure. We're gonna branch out. We want to eventually get to 9 or 10 events. Caden's a sophomore, so next year, Kyle, he's a senior. He'll graduate this year, and then after this summer, I've got 2 years left with a kid in high school. And when he graduates and I'm done with the youth bowling thing, I plan on diving into salmon fishing full bore. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. You and I are going to be in about the same boat. I've got a 17, a 15, and a 13, but my 13 is a fisherman, Lily. So, when little Russell's out of the house or out of high school at least, there'll be a little less things to do. And Lily likes to do the salmon fishing anyways. So I really appreciate you coming on. For everybody at home, this is my buddy Jason Pranger, one of the, in my opinion, one of the top tournament fishermen on the Michigan side of Lake Michigan for the last 20 years, and he's proven that in multiple different venues, multiple different boats. But really, it's just been fun, kind of reminiscing a little bit about some of the past and a 20-plus year relationship that you and I have had, and also just thank you very much for your support of Salmon Candy, helping us continue to develop what we think is an outstanding tackle company that we're just trying to make really good stuff for great fishermen. So thank you for everything.
Yeah, you got it, Russ. And thank you for allowing us to test some product, and thanks for getting us some of the things that we need. Appreciate you having me on here today. We should schedule a visit to Wisconsin so I can take a look at the shop. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, absolutely. We will. We'll figure something out. I'm thinking maybe we're going to do like a captain's roundtable or something. We'll have to figure out a time and place and see what the plan will be. But for everybody at home, next week I don't know who I'm going to have on yet. Kind of a week-to-week thing, as we always know. But this is Jason Pranger and Russell Gahagan closing out the morning buzz with Russell's Fishing Tech. We'll see you next time.